right. It looks like I'm live. Everything worked this time. Yay. All right. So let me know if you can see and hear me before we get started. Hey, Stephanie and Lori and Rachel. A few Rachels. Pam, Kristen. All right. Excellent. Crystal. Yay. All right. And I see the numbers of people joining is rapidly growing. So that's fun. Yes. Okay. And I was loving looking through the chat earlier today, or I mean, just now, really. Just the chat already going on about goal setting and projects and all of that. And seeing the poll. So if you haven't taken the poll yet, it should say poll right about there. So take that poll and we'll kind of see where we're at. I know a lot. So the majority have said that they love planning, love goals, but I think for myself, I also love goals. And it looked like from the chat and, I've talked to a few of you and to other people. And even if you love goals, that loving goals and loving to set goals is not quite the same thing as following through on the goals, right? Loving to have them or to make them is not quite the same thing as like doing them. So take that poll right about there, and then we'll see where we're at and we'll get started. This is going to be a very practical session. It's not just going to be you sitting there listening to me, although I completely understand if you are cooking or doing dishes or folding laundry. There's always the replay to come back and do the practical stuff again. So the replay is going to be available at this same link. So if you want to come back to it, if you want to share it, if you have to leave early, you can always just come back to this same link and it will be here. So I'm so glad you've joined this morning. It's kind of that dead week time between Christmas and New Year's where we just get to hopefully have a little bit slower pace after the whirlwind of Christmas. We had multiple Christmases since we have both sides of our family local-ish. We were able to see everyone and celebrate with everyone, which was awesome. And an absolutely lovely Christmas Eve service at our church. But it's just, crowd of people after crowd of people. It's nice to have some more downtime to play the board games, to throw away the wrapping paper, and to think about next year. And the temptation, of course, in thinking about next year and when we're going to start school up again and start real life back up again after Christmas is to think, I'm going to wake up and be a completely new person. And if you've tried setting goals enough, that doesn't actually happen. But it's so tempting. It's so tempting to think that when this is the plan that's going to work. This is the plan that I'm going to work. When I'm going to put this together in just the right way, I have a new planner. I'm going to do it right this time. And basically what it boils down to is waking up. It wouldn't be a Monday morning, would it? It's going to be Wednesday morning, the 2nd of January, and everything will be awesome. It was total life makeover. And that's not actually the way it goes, right? It turns out that we're the same person Monday after Monday or year after year, or at least it feels that way, and it can feel that way. And so when we're making plans, we need to take into account our actual situation, our actual needs, our actual self and our personality, and what we know works for us. And it's so easy when we start thinking about the past year and setting goals for the new year. Usually our goals are focused on fixing things we don't like, right? We want to do this better and do that better, and we want to change this and change that, which really comes from a place of sometimes discontent, which is not a good place to start from, right? But even just noticing all the bad things. And that's not where we want to start with our goal setting, especially because that is easily a place where we get stuck and we stay in that focusing on the negatives, so that even as we start working our plan, we're still focusing on the negatives. We move into the plan continuing to stay in critical mode. And so instead of starting from a place of criticism, we need to start from a place of gratitude to God for this last year and for what we were able to do and the ways we were able to grow, and look back and notice the ways that we did grow, the things that we did do, because it's only when we notice what was working that we can build on that, right? If we know some things, and clearly, none of us know how to make it all work just so and just right, control it all, because that's not going to happen. That's not within our abilities. God's going to keep us on our toes because he's continuing to grow us in his way. And so what we want to do is not control our lives moving forward, but grow in self-control, grow in the fruit of the Spirit, grow in faith, grow in gratitude, so that as God directs our path and God puts things in our path that probably we would not choose, we can respond in faithful obedience. And that's really at the heart of the kind of organization and the kind of goals that we really want as Christian wives and mothers. It's not generic productivity like the world talks about it. It's really being a good steward of our time and our resources, and then walking in faithful obedience with self-control instead of trying to control the outcomes or control the situation or control other people. The kind of control that God wants us to have is self-control, because he's got the real control. And so we can have faith and trust there. So let's, no, don't start crying yet. That was not my goal. Okay. So let's start with the practical side of things. And so I hope you have paper and a pen to get started today, because you're going to probably fill more than one notebook page. So have some paper, have a pen that you love writing with. Maybe you're typing, but I really, really recommend writing this out by hand because there's just something about the way that we process when we write out by hand. So get paper and a pen or pencil and think about how you have seen God work in your life this last year. So that's different from goals that you've reached, right? The goals that you've set and accomplished. It's different from noticing what didn't work that you want to fix this next year. First, look back and think of at least 3 things that God used in your life this year to grow you, and ways that you grew this year. Write those out. And I'm going to give you a little bit of time there while I have my sparkling water. The replays are going to be available at this same link. And if you're on my email list, I'm also going to include the replay in Saturday's email. I guess that's tomorrow morning. This is the week where we have a hard time keeping track of the day of the week. Yes, the replay is going to be right here at the same URL, same link. So 3 ways, if you have any that you can share in the chat, that would be great. So 3 ways that you have grown this last year. The things that you are grateful for to God, right? It's not general, vague, nondescript gratitude. All gratitude is directed to God because he's the one in control. Everything comes to us, not by chance, but from his fatherly hand. And we're thinking back about the year and how we have grown based on what happened this year in gratitude, right? Instead of looking back in criticism and how we're going to move forward differently, this time be a completely different person. Instead, we're looking back and starting from a place of gratitude and realizing that we're on a journey, that God has us on this path of sanctification. And even though things did not go the way we would have had them go, God's using those things in our life for his glory, for our good. Yes. Oh, that's a good one, Lori. Conviction of the importance of consistent church attendance and Christian fellowship. Yes. Love those deep conversations with Voxer friends. Joys related to gratitude. Yes. I have stated it a few different ways. So whatever is coming to mind, just brain dumping the way that resonates with you. What you can and can't control. Yes. That's what we want to think about as we move forward with goal setting too, because I think a lot of the goal setting stuff that's out there encourages us to act as if we control our lives or we can control our lives. All we need is a better plan. If we just make a better goal, make a better plan, then we'll be in control of our lives. And, you know, maybe an executive of a company can and should be in control of his product, you know, in his day, because he has a secretary and an office door to close, and it's his job to direct a company. And it's tempting then as a homemaker and a mother at home, and even if you're not home 100% of the time, but still you're the mom, you are in your home, kids are looking to you, and it's easy to think, well, I'm the CEO of my house and of my home. And so, and, you know, I you see that kind of language thrown around. And so then it's tempting to then take that advice whole hog, right? You know, just straight across and say, well, then what applies to a CEO, an executive in an office with a secretary applies to me. You know, what's going to make his business work is what's going to make my home work. And it doesn't work that way, right? Because homes don't work that way. We aren't pulling a team together to create a product that's outside of the people. We are counseling and growing and developing people. And so that's a completely different orientation than an executive might have. However, that's not to say that none of that applies at all either, and that because we're just moms at home, we can just kind of fly by the seat of our pants, which is the default setting for most of us, because even when we've tried planning, it doesn't work very well. And so we just end up saying, well, I'll just keep flying by the seat of my pants because I can do that. I have experience doing that. And that seems to be like the only option that has any consistency in my life. We need to find that balance of making goals and setting a direction and, moving forward deliberately and intentionally, and do move forward in intentional, deliberate ways, and not just fly by the seat of our pants and continually work in urgent mode. So we have to find this balance and find that right sweet spot for us, acknowledging that both that life and our goals and our orientation is different, but still that doesn't mean that none of it applies at all, or that we don't then have a responsibility to do a good job, right? We still want very deeply to do a good job. And that's why we keep getting drawn back to goal setting, to new planners, to fresh starts, because we really do want to do a good job. We want to be faithful stewards. We want to walk in faithful obedience. And we know that we are supposed to learn and grow, right? Sanctification is God growing us in Christ likeness. And that's a whole life process. It is a goal because it does have an end point. But the end point is not going to be within this life. It's glory. So we have one goal. We know we have God's will for our lives because the Bible lays that out pretty clearly. It says God's will for you is your sanctification. And we know that that reaches perfection in glory. And so no matter where we are starting at right now, and right now for most of us is not even the starting point, it's some sort of middle point, because we've been on this path for some time, and looking back and seeing progress in our spiritual lives, and then even that progress working itself out in our practical duty fulfilling lives is important, because that's the overarching vision that we all share as Christians, and it looks different, but it's all that same banner that we are all following, which is sanctification, growing in godliness and faithful obedience. And that's why, repent, rejoice, repeat works for all of us. Exactly what that looks like for each of us is different, but overall, that's the overarching plan. So let's talk about goals a little bit. I kind of alluded to that just now with a goal has an end point. That's part of the definition of a goal. So it's something, it's check-offable. You can achieve it and be done with it. So let's think about that and work with that for a little bit before I go into critique mode on goals. What are some goals that you have had recently? Maybe that you had last year, maybe some homeschool goals, personal goals, goals in mind for next year. Goals have an end point. You can do the, like sewing a dress. At some point it's done and you move on. It's accomplished and you do something different. So, what are some goals that you have had in mind before or right now? Start school by 9 a.m. There we go. 90 days of homeschool before Christmas break, right? You can measure those, you can do those. Celebrate Christmas. It's a little bit like it was done, but that has a lot of wiggle room there, right? What counts? You could painting our children's rooms. Yep. Okay, declutter and make my home more functional. That's do the dishes every day. That's okay. Pay off some debt. That's done because the debt's gone when you've paid it off, right? Not eat after 8 p.m. Read through the entire Bible. Better time management. Consistently read aloud. Okay, yep. Develop the habit of exercise. So some stuff here, some of these are goals and some of these are a little bit more aspirational. They're directional. They are the direction that we want to grow. And some of these are habits. So we really need to drill down when we are thinking about what we're going to work on for the next year and the ways that we want to grow next year, because I think that too often we state habits and directions and skills that we want to build and grow, because any kind of consistency comes from habits, but really is more of a character trait and a direction that we want to grow in. It's a skill that we're trying to develop, and it's not really a goal because you're never done with it. And when we set up some of these desires that we want to grow in, and we think of them as goals, I think we kind of have this unconscious default in our minds as we think about them that I am going to achieve this, like it's crossed off a bowl. We do this even with laundry. Like I want to get on top of laundry, as if that's something you can do once and for all. But you can do it once and you're going to have to do it again another time. I mean, nothing stops the laundry from continuing to generate. And so things like consistency of any kind, those sorts of goals, they're very good direction and good things to work on. And that's really more of what we're going to be talking about a little bit later on. But the problem is that they aren't really goals. And so when we get in a goal mindset and we think of them as goals and we phrase them as goals, we set ourselves up for discouragement instead of for progress. Those are all things that we want to make progress in and grow in. But we start thinking of them often without even being aware of it. We think of them as being things that we will accomplish and be done with. That kind of once and for all. I will suddenly magically become this sort of person that never misses a day of school or, that sort of thing. When really the, okay, there are ways of being done with laundry that we are not going to go there. You can take extreme measures. But when we really want our growth directions and character growth and skill development, but when we phrase them or think of them, even by default unconsciously, as goals that we can accomplish and be done with and move on from, we set ourselves up for frustration and disappointment, because none of those things are things that we're going to be done with in this life, like laundry. Organization is like laundry. It's not something that you can ever be check, done with that. I now have an organization system that just runs on total autopilot and I don't do anything. That's often kind of what we want deep down, even though we're usually smart enough to not say it out loud. We want those, like the T.S. Eliot line, systems so perfect that nobody needs to be good. Systems so perfect that nobody needs to be good. We want an organization, deep down, what we would really love, right? Is some kind of organization system that just ran itself. We don't want to be the ones having to exert self-control and make good choices and do the right thing day in, day out. we think, we take the Charlotte Mason quote, maybe, that habits make for smooth and easy days. And we set up smooth and easy day, like easy day, as in I didn't have to do anything hard. I didn't have to make any decisions or do anything I didn't want to do. That's when I know that I've arrived. And that's the goal that I'm shooting for, is this smooth and easy day. And I said, well, learning actually always involves tension. So we set up these false expectations and false definitions of what we're really going for. And then we don't notice the progress that we are making. And we feel like failures perpetually because we never seem to get closer to done. We always are noticing things we can continue to grow in. But that is a part of the process. And that just means that you are human and growing in sanctification. Even as, that's the way sanctification works. Even as we do kill sin and put away sinful habits, we still then notice that, it's like peeling back an onion. We continue to notice new things, or fall into different sins, or just notice sin that we didn't even notice before, because our sensitivity to it is growing. And that's a good thing. Like, that is a part of the signal of growth, is sensitivity to the Holy Spirit's conviction. But we don't feel better, right? So if feeling sinless was our goal, if we thought that that's what sanctification meant, we would feel like we were constantly failing and doing worse and worse, when really that noticing sin more and more is actually a sign of growth. It's a sign that we are being sanctified. And this is all tied together, because anything that we do for personal growth, for personal productivity, should be done underneath that banner. It's not separate. Our lives aren't compartmentalized and aren't separated. If we are seeking to be organized, it needs to be for God's glory and not ours. It needs to be so that we can serve and love our families better, not, make life easy for ourselves. So that's why I keep kind of toggling between the two and using one to interpret the other, because this is just life. And our productivity or our organization is a small fraction of our sanctification. And the sanctification will definitely impact every area of our life. And what we really want when we are working for organization, or trying for organization, or setting a goal, is a stronger character that does the right thing when we're tempted to do the wrong thing, right? There's, whether that's financial or dietary or home cleaning or parenting. Basically, we realize that our character, our self-control, needs to grow and develop. And the goals that we set, or the habits that we try to build, are just the specific ways that we're trying to work that out. So let's take another little breather, a little brain dump breather, and write down 3 to 5 ways that you would like to grow. So consciously put away thoughts of goals, like a check-offable, accomplishable goal, and kind of step back from that to a bigger perspective, a big picture thing, and think of character, sanctification, directional. Where are areas that you would like to grow in? Yeah. Jody says there's peace in order. Yes, it is what you want your identity to be, but it's a little bit more specific or more narrowed down than that. So there's like overall like sanctification or, our identity is in Christ. That's like completely big. That's the biggest picture. And then the goal, like the things we want to do are the tiny implementation parts. Like we want something mid-level, like, right now I'm feeling really convicted that I need to, there you go, Amanda has it, be less critical when I respond to my children. See, that's not a goal because that's not something that you ever check off as having done, right? You can one time think a critical thought and instead say something encouraging, and that would be fulfilling that, but you wouldn't then say, okay, check, done that, now I can do whatever, that's not done when it's been done once, right? That's something to grow in. Time management, building spiritual life, not trying to escape from children, controlled temper, be more fun, improved tone. Yes. I like to speak life-giving words, have more self-control in stressful situation. Yes. Be more aware of things I can pray about, pray less negative self-talk. Yes, the fruit of the Spirit, very good. Right. Strengthen my habit of follow through. Good. So those give us focus because, really sanctification is so big and so broad and so applicable to every single area of our life that like there's no area that we couldn't do better in, right? But if we put some focused attention in an area or a couple areas of life, and stay aware of it, it helps us make progress in that area because we're praying about it, we're aware of it, we're conscious of it, we have a plan, meaning, we will notice when we need to do the right thing more often. Instead of that kind of fly by the seat of my pants feeling is always reactive. You're things are coming at you and you're just very instinctual instead of deliberate. So when but our attention has to be focused, or else we are just that scattered reactionary. So to be able to respond, we want to choose a few areas that we really want to deliberately grow in. And, things like smiling more, being less critical. Yeah, these are all great. That narrows it down for our attention. And then we can take that and rephrase that into practical applications. But when we have that overarching direction that we're trying to grow, we will notice progress more. And we have that reason why, which I think often gets in the way of some of our habit goals that we tried to build or practical application. Like I'm going to, exercise 30 minutes a day, or I'm going to smile when I see my kids. I'm going to smile at them. We take these very nitty-gritty practical things we can do, but if we don't remember what they're tied to and what we're growing in, why we're doing them, then it just becomes a checking the box thing or an argument in our minds every time. So we will get to the practical, like actual things we're going to do. But when it's tied to the direction that we're growing in, it helps us stick with it. It helps us grow in the wanting to and the loving it, instead of just doing it because we're supposed to, or we said we would, or, the kind of straight willpower, like just try to grin and bear it. We want to grow and change our affections and what we love, so that we love what should be done and not just do what should be done, but really want to as well. So when we keep that bigger perspective in mind with the practical application, it helps us continue with it. So, when we work on this stuff in simplified organization, or even work the plan, but we do it most in simplified organization, it starts with vocations. So you work out what your vocations are, what your responsibilities are to other people or to God, right? Because he's the one who gives us vocations. And we start with that kind of bigger picture, breaking it down a little bit into different vocations. And then we kind of set identity type things or directional type things with choosing adjectives that we want to describe us in those vocations. So if you had wife, it could be optimistic, seeing things I saw here, helpful, generous. You would choose adjectives that you want to describe you, because a lot of times those situations that come up when we're serving other people, a specific thing to do every day doesn't always quite fit. We want to be responsive instead of reactive. That's really, we want to be intentional and deliberate, but that doesn't mean controlling the situation. So that does mean that we have to leave this room for responding appropriately. And so a direct action formula doesn't always quite fit in these kind of directions that we want to grow in as wives and mothers. So when you instead think of your vocations and adjectives that describe how you want to grow in those vocations, then that helps you interpret what's coming at you in real life. So that kind of self-talk, you're like, oh, this is an opportunity to practice, generosity. And then you can notice that you're growing, you're practicing these areas, even though they're not anything you could check off of a checklist. Those are the ways we really have growth. And that's also how we can think of a few different areas, but still have focus through noticing our vocations and wanting to grow gradually and not an overnight change in each one. And then after we have that focus, so we've kind of thought of our different areas and come up with the character focus, then it's each interval, usually, so a shorter term than a year, because a year is a really long time to maintain focus. The adjectives or the growth areas could definitely last for a year. At least they might last for 5 years or more, because they are wide open. There's a lot of ways to grow, and we'll never be perfect in any of those ways. We would never be done with, say, develop a daily habit of gratitude, like Bethany says there. That's not anything you would ever be done with and move on from, right? So those are bigger even than a year. But then we would work down to, well, how may I take action with that right now? And then you're committing for just a shorter term with, say, I'm going to keep a notebook on my counter, and every morning while I drink my coffee, write down something I'm grateful for. So you're not committing to doing exactly that for your whole life, because sometimes I think some of our resistance comes because we try to make a practice like that and lay it out there. And then I was like, I I could do this today, but I don't want to commit to doing that for the rest of my life. So I'm just not going to get started. And a lot of that is just happening subconsciously, throwing at mental, it feels like just vague resistance, like I don't want to. But a lot of it is not being sure of your commitment level and what you're actually committing yourself to. And you want to like be all in because it feels like being all in is that's motivation. I'm like, well, sometimes that kind of being all in actually throws up a bunch of mental and emotional resistance because that kind of commitment's scary and it's not actually appropriate or applicable. Like it's not the kind of commitment or motivation you actually need. So that's why it's not so helpful. But instead you say, okay, this is what I'm going to do this week or this month or this interval, whatever an interval is for you. And then that's clear and specific and not scary. You have a chance to reevaluate and change things up. And that really helps. Right. So commitment phobic. There is a free vocation guide you can find on my site. Maybe Stephanie can find that link and grab it and share it. But we work on vocations and use vocations as an organizing principle within the Simplified Organization e-course. And when we do, I know a lot of you here are doing the 6-month coaching, community coaching, this is not like all me all the time, but we're going to be working through this together for the first half, for a whole 6 months of 2019. And a big part of that is going to be working from the vocations, ironing out those vocations, and then really using them as an organizing principle, because it helps us remember that we're on this path and we're moving forward and we're focused on these roles and ways to serve and glorify God in our lives. We'll be doing workshops like this in that community coaching and really iron those out for everyone and make sure that the goals and all of that are clear and actionable, but also aligned. I do have a couple of posts on it. So thank you for sharing those. So we have now the general area of the direction, a focused direction that we want to grow in. Then we can set some specific actions to take. So what are some specific actions you could take? Choose one that would help you move your goal forward. That might be a habit that you want to build. That might be something like smile at the kids in the morning. And that can become a habit. And so a habit is something that takes intention and time to build. But once it's a habit, we continue to do it, but it no longer takes willpower to do. So, and some people are more naturally habit builders than others. Some of us are a little bit more internally argumentative. That's me. And it takes longer to build habits because there's so much internal chatter that kind of gets in the way of the automating of the processes. Like, no, I don't have to. But it's not a habit until you do it without thinking. And so there are things that we want to build into habits. And for some people that won't take long. And for some people, it will take a very long time. On the other hand, there are routines, and routines are things that we do regularly, maybe daily, maybe multiple times a day, maybe weekly. We still consciously choose to do them, and it takes a little bit of mental energy. They're not quite habits because we don't do them automatically, but they're still routines. So they take less decision making. They take less, the more often we do them, the closer they get even if they never quite cross the barrier into habits, they get closer to where it's not as draining and just mentally, emotionally to like make that leap and just get started. Yeah, okay, leave my phone upstairs. That's a good one. So none of this means that goals are bad. Oh, not seeing the connection between habits or routines. Well, they're kind of different. So they're different things, but just like goals and growth, you know, character growth, we kind of, the lines between them easily get blurred, but that's where we start making, you know, goals that aren't goals. Or we might say, I'm going to create this habit, but it's not really going to be a habit probably. It's going to be a routine. So a habit is something that you do automatically. You do it kind of like that sensation of when you drive a familiar path and you leave your driveway and then suddenly you're a mile from home and you know you've made turns and cross lights and everything, but you don't remember it. Like you're just doing it on complete mental autopilot. You know, maybe it's coming down and hitting start the coffee pot, and you've done it and you're like, did I do that? I don't, because it took no conscious thought to do. That's a habit. If you are doing something with zero conscious thought, that's a habit. Something that we repeatedly do, but we still have to remind ourselves to do, and we still have to like overcome that initial hurdle, that's a routine. And sometimes we work a routine in long enough that it becomes a habit. But even if it doesn't, routines are still good. And the longer you keep at a routine, even if it never crosses that threshold into being a completely automatic habit, it still reduces the amount of mental and emotional energy that it takes to get started. The more you get started, the easier getting started becomes. I know most of the habits might be bad habits. You know, when you open up the cupboard and you're like, I don't know, did I just eat half a bag of chips? How did that happen? Like, that's autopilot. So bad habits are way easier to form than good habits. None of this, though, means that goals are things that we shouldn't set or we should avoid. Like we should only work on habits or only work on routines, or, you know, avoid thinking about goals, because the goals can give us touch points for seeing progress. So an example would be weight loss, right? Kind of a universal New Year's resolution. I've got it. I've got the same goal number, right? And so a number on a scale is a goal because you know when you've reached it, you can check that off. Then it becomes a little bit tricky because it turns out that hitting a number on a scale isn't permanent. I mean, there are things you can do that will change that number in both directions for your whole life, right? So it is a goal because it's something specific and measurable that you can achieve, but then it's not a goal that is done when it's done, right? So to get to a goal like a number on a scale, you have to make changes that are lifestyle changes, right? But then those are scary because those are commitments. But we can slowly notice and change our habits and track those routines and small changes that give momentum. So that all applies to weight loss, but I'm trying to use that more as a metaphor for any of the other things that applies to home routines. Like we think of our end goal for home routines as being a clean house, but that's just like a number on a scale. It is a state that can happen, but beware of checking it off the list, right? Because next thing you know, it's not there anymore. And so we want to have, well, a more orderly house, or a house that is more clean more often. Well, how do you get there? By building the routines, by building the habits that will make that more doable to maintain once we get there, just like with weight. This it is a metaphor for life because it is part of apparently just the way the world and humans work. Is we have these goals, or we have that point, that ideal point in mind where we think we want to be, whether that's a weight or our house clean or an organization system or a marriage or a homeschool. Like we have this picture in our minds, and sometimes it's measurable and sometimes it's not, but we have this, like, this is what I want it to be. And even if we get there, it's never going to stay like that, reaching it as a single goal. We have to think of that as the direction we're moving toward and the goal that we are moving toward. But then to get there, we have to be taking the baby steps of routines and habits to get there. And those routines and habits stay in place even after we reach that goal. So it's never a once and done sort of a thing that we are going for in probably any area of our life. It is a building those processes and habits and routines and just lifestyle changes that are going to help you maintain in that wiggle room area. Like going back to weight as the metaphor, it would be your range, because I don't know, like I never stay the exact, I weigh myself most days, like every day, and my weight is never the same every day. I have a range, and my house has a range. It's like, okay, so here's my range right now, and I would like my range to move here. And right now my house has this range, and I would like the state of my house's range to like move here. And so we can have, so those are the kind of goals that we want to set. But it's going to be lifestyle changes, slow and steady habits and routines and processes that are in place that not only get us closer, but even once we arrive, that keep us there. If we stopped any of those, that progress would go away. And that progress and that range, there will be things that will make it go away. Illness, vacations, moving, job changes. Like life is full of things that throw us off our game. And when we've worked on the lifestyle changes that we need for whatever the goal is, it's going to be easier to get back on the horse again. But it's not going to be the sort of thing where now I will never fall off the horse again. Like I've found the magic system that will prevent me from ever getting off my game. I will now always be able to stay in this weight range for the rest of my life. I'm like, well, then what I hear is menopause hits and you have to learn all over again how to manage your weight. Or, it's a new house and you have to learn all over again your routines, because it's actually the different layout, the different amount of space, it changes. You have to relearn how to do it. But having done it once makes it easier to do again. So, yes. Yeah. Getting to a new normal is uncomfortable. That is true. That's true. And that's why having that kind of bigger picture, that character growth picture in mind helps us, because those small steps that we take, those lifestyle changes, are uncomfortable changes to make. So we have to have that reason and that vision. It's not like a grand vision, it's just small change vision, character growth vision in mind, because that helps us overcome the uncomfortable. Right. And that's why, health is a better goal than a number on a scale. There are different things, different ways to measure. It's like, what am I really after? And it's the same with a clean house, right? Because we don't want a clean house that's magazine photo worthy, but no one likes being there, right? So clean house, just like a number on a scale, usually is not the best indicator of how we're doing. It has to have a better, a healthier, a more appropriate reason behind it, and a healthier way of getting there than, crash dieting to get to a certain number on a scale. There is definitely home management analogies to be drawn there between the two. I mentioned in that post last week on SMART goals, why SMART goals aren't, or something like that. So SMART goals are kind of the business world speak for goals. So it means that your goal is specific and measurable, actionable, or some use achievable, relevant, and time bound. So that basically means what it means. It's not vague, it's very specific. You know what the goal is, and it's super specific. When you reach it, it's measurable. So it's check-offable. It's not character growth. It's something that is actually able to be finished and measured. So getting healthy is not a SMART goal. Getting healthy is a growth area. A number on a scale would be a SMART goal. If actually time bound, achievable, it would have to, not any number on the scale. It would have to be achievable. And you would also, according to the SMART goal way, have to set a time when you are going to do it by. And I don't so that's like a recipe for disaster. If we're using weight loss as our example, but also our metaphor, I think it applies to the other areas in our life where what we really need and want is growth. We have to be super careful, because sometimes going for those SMART goals sets us on a wrong mentality for what we're measuring, what we're working towards, and how we're going to get there. And so I used a different acronym in my post last week, and it was REAL, because we're trying to work with real life here and not our idealized, escapist, planny kind of things. And so I kept the R. So the SMART goal, the R is relevant, and the R in real is relevant, because it does need to be applicable to your life right now. Like, it needs to be something that you care about. It needs to be something where you feel that need, because that is going to provide the impetus to move forward. Like, you really notice that you're lacking this and you really want to grow in that direction. That's going to provide motivation. So you don't want to take someone else's goal or feel like you should because someone else thinks something. And that goes into, then I had exclusive for the E, mainly because it needed to be an E word, but exclusive to you. Don't let anyone else set a goal for you. Don't just take someone else's goal and like, oh, I like that, I'm going to make it mine. I think that's probably not going to work. It's not so exclusive to you. You're not comparing yourself to someone else and setting a goal for yourself based on comparing with others. That's not healthy. Then the A is aligned. And aligned is, there are a couple different like ways to express aligned. But I'm using this here because in simplified organization, I've redone it this summer. I took everything down and redid it. And now there's this section in there for attitude alignment sheets. Or if you've done Art of Homeschooling, there were prep sheets. Those are now renamed also to alignment sheets. So alignment, like if your tires are misaligned, they don't work together. Things don't go quite right. And so you bring them into alignment where they, like, this is, say, our standard. This is straight, and we aren't. We have to do something that brings us into alignment. And the thing is, we need that daily. So basically, it means review. It means look at them, read them, realign your mindset. Right now, I'm pretty sure now, all of my courses have this component in some way or another. And if you take Pam's Put Your Morning on Autopilot course, it's going to be Align. She has a PEACE acronym, or if you were at the Scholé Sisters retreat, she talked about a PEACE acronym for your mother's morning basket. And so Align is this step of bringing our hearts and our minds into alignment with God's word. That's more with prayer, which is separate, but also reminding ourselves of our goals and the reasons behind the goals, right? That character, bigger picture focus, the why, the direction. Because a lot of times we spend this week or the first week in January making goals, and then we never look at them again. And I was like, that's my planning insight, is if you make a plan and don't look at it, it doesn't work, right? Well, it's true for the growth that we want to achieve too. If we have a moment of clarity and we get excited, but then we never come back to it, we lose it, right? We lose focus and we start doing that fly by the seat of our pants again. So we have to have it written down, and then we have to look at it and remind ourselves of the truth that we are working towards, the areas of character growth that we are working towards, and not in a way that is self-critical, like looking at all the ways I haven't, but in saying, okay, right, this is the direction I'm going, and it's there in front of your face so that you can pray about it and ask God to help you see the opportunities in the coming day to grow in that area. And then you can also look back and see ways that you are growing in that area. But unless we review them, unless we keep them top of mind, front of face, unless we are really reviewing and looking at them constantly or continually, at least daily, or at least weekly during the weekly review, right? Unless we have it in an easy to review place, written out clearly in a place where we will see it, we're just going to forget, because that's the way people are. And so we have to keep it in the front of our face, continually reviewing, recognizing that it's something we're going to be continually working on. So it's not a punishment to be reviewing it. It's just a bringing your heart and mind back into focus. Like, oh yeah, this is what it's about. This is what we're moving forward with. And that will help you be aware throughout the rest of the day of the opportunities you have to grow in those areas, because it keeps it kind of in that awareness, attention area in your mind. If you have it written out in a place where you will see it. So that's what the align steps. The align step is really looking at it. You've written it out and you look at it. In simplified organization, there is an attitude alignment. You make a cheat sheet. And then as we work through the course, you keep adding things to that attitude alignment cheat sheet. And that basically means something that you look at daily to keep your attitude, your self-talk, your focus, your mental and emotional awareness where it should be instead of wherever it happens to go based on the events of the day. Yes, then the L is life bound. So the last one in the SMART goal at T is time bound. So you give yourself a deadline. So instead of time bound, it's life bound. And that means that it's something that fits within your real life. So it's realistic. It isn't assuming that next week you're going to wake up a whole new person or you're going to wake up in a whole new situation. It's not thinking, okay, I'm going to make homeschool goals that ignore the fact that my children have learning disabilities. You're going to take your real situation, your real needs, your real restrictions, your real responsibilities, and acknowledge them and work with them instead of fight them or pretend they don't exist when you're making your goals. Right. So L is life bound. And the way that I would recommend focusing on that life bound thing is vocations. So knowing your vocations and thinking about everything you're doing in life in terms of your vocations helps you keep that life bound aspect, because it gives you a vocabulary and mental categories to think about what you want to accomplish or where you're spending your time. It gives you the categories of these are the things I'm responsible for. And so these do bind me in a way. They do restrict me. It's not that I can be whatever I want to be. God's actually given me a place to be. He's given me responsibilities to fulfill. He's given me this particular calling. I don't get to remake myself based on whatever I want to be. Instead, I have to fulfill the responsibilities where God has put me. So we talk about that within simplified organization as of vocations, where that's not us making up what we are going to be. It's like, are you married? Then you have the vocation of being a wife. You might phrase it, everyone, pools things together and names things a little bit differently, but you're looking at those commitments and life boundaries that do exist. And I know a lot of people have found so much more emotional and mental clarity and freedom when they realize, that maybe managing a medical need is not part of mothering. That's its own thing. I need to mother them. And then also this medical thing is an area of responsibility that I've been given, that I have to manage this as a distinct responsibility. It's not just a part of normal mothering. For us, it's this bigger thing that restricts and puts boundaries around what I'm able to do or other things that I might wish I could do. We actually experience more freedom and more creativity, even in problem solving, when we recognize the boundaries of where we are. And part of our goal setting and our growth setting isn't ignoring those and doing what we wish, planning according to what we wish life were like or what we hope life will be like in the future, but with where we actually are right now, with the needs and responsibilities, walking in faithful obedience right here, right now. So, yes. Okay. Oh, good. And I see people sharing different strategies in the comments. That's awesome. And life bound could also be, I'm pregnant right now. I'm not, if you are pregnant right now, that was not an announcement, but being pregnant is something like that affects your energy level, that affects what you're able to do. If you have a nursing baby, that falls under the life bound. Like, don't pretend like you are the same as you were with no kids. Like that, we kind of picture, the me without kids or the me before I was pregnant is the real me, and I need to do whatever I can to be like that person. I'm like, well, no, right now I'm nursing, and that's my boundary line. Like that's my responsibility, where I am needed most right now. So I'm where I'm supposed to be, so it's acknowledging, yeah, that's not, like, wait a sec, that came out a little wrong. But, where you are in life right now, work with that, and don't let the goal setting become trying to become some idealized form of yourself. Right. Stop dreaming of the past or the future, and while neglecting the current situation. So plan for your current real life situation. Okay. So that's right. Growing a baby is a big, physically demanding job, even if it looks like sitting on the couch and sleeping a lot. Your body is doing a lot, and it's what it was made to do and created to do. So it's what you need to do. That's right. Yep. So, yes. Right. Nausea means everything is working like it's supposed to. That's a good reminder. And, it's not going to last forever. So, we look at the year to come, and we say, well, how can I steward this situation that I am right now the best I can? And that doesn't mean by completely waking up a new person, or waking up not morning sick, whereas you were like, the morning sickness will go away. But while you have it, how can you grow in faithfulness right now, right here with it? Not trying to make it go away, but just, basically having a good attitude about it while it's there, right? Because it really turns out that organization is not so much about, labeling the containers in the closet, or making a planner cute and pretty and carrying it around everywhere you go. Organization is really about being responsive to the current needs in front of you, rather than being reactive. And that is really a mindset and an attitude shift, as much as it is a tools and actions shift. So yes, you need a calendar. Yes, you need a place for everything. Yes, a weekly review is going to help you be aware of your commitments and what you need to do. But if you only managed the stuff and did the organized actions, you would still be missing that responsiveness to life instead of reaction, that feeling of not scrambling and not flying by the seat of your pants in a world where our responsibility has to do with other people and not just moving stuff around, where other people are dependent on us. Our organization needs to be as much our attitude and our mindset and our demeanor and our tone as much as anything else, because our tone sets the tone of our home, and the tone determines how people are going to interact with each other, which, impacts everything. So our tone, our attitude, the way we manage life, like just right in here first, and, us to God, affects all the other things. And just managing the other things, the stuff part of it, isn't enough. It isn't adequate for what we are really truly after, which is, growing our character, helping our children grow their character, growing in godliness, faithful obedience, responding and not reacting, being resilient when things don't go our way, instead of being a control freak. A lot of planning comes out of a desire of being a control freak, and that's not the kind of organization that we want. We want organization that is us glorifying God by doing what we're supposed to do. So that's what we are going to do in Simplified Organization, the e-course this year. It is redone, it is re-released, and we're going to do workshops like this one twice a month for the next 6 weeks, or for the next 6 months. Twice a month for the next 6 months. Just practical, nitty-gritty, staying on target, on track with the 6-month community coaching through the Simplified Organization program, which is 12 sections on your attitude and your mindset, and 12 accessories that we're going to set up, like a planner, like a calendar, like a command center, which is just a spot for the paper to go. The real basics. It is how to climb out of chaos and just put the basics in place, but not just the basics, like a calendar and a command center, but also the basics, like how we can keep our hearts and our minds aligned and responsive instead of stressed out and reactive. So I'm really looking forward to that. And we're going to take this goal setting stuff and move forward with that in the community coaching, because each person should have a particular area that they are wanting to hone in on and really focus their attention on, because I think that's where we see the most growth, whether or not you do the simplified organization. But if you look forward, or as you make your plan, if you I think that's why the word of the year thing is such a helpful thing, or a statement or a character growth thing. If you put that on the top of your planner, maybe on the cover of your planner, on your checklist, put it somewhere where it's in front of your face so that you remember it, you stay mindful of it, and it will pop to mind when you need it, to pray about it, to act in accordance with it, whether it's consistency or the community coaching starts next week. So next Friday, we're going to do a kickoff workshop like this one, but the topic's going to be, it's not going to be goal setting, but it'll be run like this one, hopefully a little bit shorter. So yes, if you click the green button right below here, how to get organized in 2019, that'll take you to information about simplified organization and then the community program, community coaching. No, you do not need Convivial Circle for the community coaching. They're separate. So Convivial Circle is our private chat app. Then there is a monthly access fee for that, but it's kind of like a private Facebook group, but not on Facebook. It's completely private. And we have weekly stand-ups, which is like, saying what you're going to do. It's accountability. And then also all kinds of conversation channels. And there in Convivial Circle, there will also be office hours. I'm going to start that next week. So next week, every Wednesday for an hour, I'll have a dedicated time in the community coaching and in the Humble Habits channel in Convivial Circle, where we'll be troubleshooting and just sharing where we're struggling and helping each other stay on target and moving forward. Yes, it's a great place because there aren't distractions. There are no ads. There's no one can get in unless, I approve. So it's great. So Convivial Circle is just a community. And the community coaching, though, is that Convivial Circle would be additional. They aren't the same thing. The community coaching, you'll get more emails to remind you to keep checking back in. You'll get a checklist to work through simplified organization. It'll give you a particular order to work through the things in and some time-bound goals. Like in January, we're going to do these sections of the course. And we're going to have, by the end of January, have your calendar in place. Work through this module and share this in this place. And so it gives you really specific, easy to keep track of the fact that you are making progress with checklists, with workshops like this that are just for the community coaching. And really it's just accountability and extra support and handholding to make sure that you really implement the strategies there. Because it's so easy to get an online course and maybe listen to half of it and think, okay, yeah, I get it, but then not really implement it into your daily life. And so the community coaching is really about implementation of those principles and practices that Simplified Organization outlines. And I'm really excited that it's going to be a whole 6 months because I've tried doing an interval intensive. I've done a 6-week one with people and a 12-week one with people. It was just a lot of stuff. It's a lot of stuff to process and implement. And those just feel so rushed. So a full 6 months to just really go step by step and build growth and really get those things in place, not just, like I said, the stuff, the accessories, or not just the weekly review, although definitely the weekly review is going to be a focus, but the attitude pieces and really working on aligning our choices and our actions with truth and with fulfilling our vocations and growing in faithful obedience and stewardship. So, yep. And if you have Simplified Organization, no matter when you bought it in the past, it is a lifetime access. So it's there if you haven't logged in since it's reopened. You can contact support@simplifiedorganization.com and we'll make sure your account's working and all that, because you do have lifetime access if you've purchased it at any time. So the community coaching is a program. It has an additional cost on top of the course, and it is a limited time access. Enrollment to the coaching program will end next Sunday. Next Sunday is the last day to enroll in that, and then that's going to close down. We're just going to be heads down in that group working on it, and it'll reopen in June for another round for July through December. But everyone who purchases Simplified Organization, the e-course, has lifetime unrestricted access to it. So that's still there. And you can find out more about the course and the coaching program right there with that green button. And there's also a special price for a monthly membership in Convivial Circle if you want to do it all. So you can find out more pricing information and everything right there on that green button. And I'd love to see, I know I'll see a lot of you next week. And let's see the questions here. I will, oh, and I see that multiple people have shared answers here. So I'm going to sum up some of these questions in the weekly review, weekly newsletter that I send out tomorrow. So if you get my emails, you will get that follow-up tomorrow. But let's see, Judy asks if the skills, let's see. So yes, I will go through these questions and answer them in tomorrow's newsletter. That'll just be the easiest way to make sure that they're clear and everyone gets answered. So it was so fun doing this all with you. Thank you for showing up and thank you for your interaction. And it's been a lot of fun. So I will see you later.